bunch of faces. I said, there's people that's been here from the beginning. There's people that's came and found us and joined us. I feel blessed. I feel blessed that the word has gone out and changed lives. I feel blessed to the people that we get to minister to through you, going out into the various people that you meet, and you bring hope into their lives. I feel blessed. I feel blessed that we're in a place that we can give to things in this community and say, we want to make sure that this community is still vibrant. I feel blessed. To you, this may be another Sunday, but I see this as a Sunday that's been built upon again and again and again. I see the blessing of God in your lives. I see the blessing of God in your jobs. I see the blessing of God going out in front of you, preparing a place for you in everything that you're doing. What started out as a word that may have been heard in vacation Bible school or in a Sunday school class has turned into you being a full-fledged adult, enjoying the full benefits of what God has to provide. I feel blessed. I didn't start out here. It's been building. It's been moving. There were things about John that had to be crucified, put to death, so that I could be able to be even to speak here today. I feel blessed. I wasn't meaning to go into this. I've just been feeling these things. I was looking at us singing together, and it looks different than it did 40 years ago. It's okay. I feel blessed. We can still worship the Lord. We still have mouths to speak, air to breathe. I don't know that anybody here is going hungry. If you are, talk to us. We'll figure something out. Our God is huge. And He asks us to take part in what He's wanting to do in people's lives. I've said from the very beginning, I don't want this to be a checklist thing. I don't want us just to come in here and say, I've done my church for the week. I want us to hear. I want us to think about. I want us to go out and for people to meet a piece of what Jesus has done for us and who God is in us. And it starts like this. Jesus kept preaching these parables. Last week we talked about that he told a parable about how God had great things planned for man. But in the middle of this all came a force, and it planted bad things in among men, that it might corrupt them. And God said, no, I believe in my wheat. He said, I believe in it. He said, we're going to grow it all up together. And he said, at the end, I'm going to have my angels sort this all out. They're going to decide who's wheat and who's chaff. Who's wheat and who's this poisonous plant called a tare. They're going to sort this all out. I'm not worried. He wasn't worried. He trusted his angels to be able to sort out the good from the bad. He told a story about a wedding feast. And he talked about how there was one man who just came in. He wouldn't wear the clothes that were provided for the wedding feast, that I assume everybody had to look a certain color, wear the bride and groom's color, so they gave them robes that they put on, and that way everybody looked the same. Everybody knew they were part of the wedding feast. And there was a guy who came into this wedding feast, and he wasn't dressed in those clothes, and he said, you can't come in here, because it's not about what we bring into the place, it's about what God gives us and what we do with it. And Jesus wanted to talk about that. So we're going to open up our Bibles to Matthew 13. This is exactly after what we talked about last week. We're going to read both of these stories. And I'm going to work on not keeping us here too long, okay? I did good last week. We're going to try for that again. Here we go. Here is another illustration Jesus used. He said, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed planted in a field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but it becomes the largest of garden plants. It grows into a tree, and birds come and make nests in its branches. Keep going. Jesus also used this illustration. The kingdom of heaven is like the yeast a woman used in making bread. Even though she put only a little yeast in 3 measures of flour, that's 3 measures is about 60 pounds of flour, it permeated every part of the dough. Jesus always used stories and illustrations like these when speaking to the crowds. In fact, he never spoke to them without using some parables. Jesus learned a long time ago that people cannot comprehend information thrown at them in a normal sense. He was dealing with people that had lives, that had other things that they were doing. He was dealing with carpenters. He was dealing with fishermen. He was dealing with farmers. They had other things on their mind. So he would use these illustrations to jog their memories, to help them to understand what he was saying. We do the same thing. I've seen doctors do. I saw a doctor do it this very week, and he talked about how a car, even you can have all the greatest gas in the world, you can have all this other stuff, but if you don't have electricity to help it start, it's not going to go. There has to be something that creates a spark so that a heart will go. But he used the car because he thought maybe they might understand a car illustration, as opposed to there's this big red pumping organ in your body that has 4 different chambers. They all work in different ways. And if they don't work right, then it's not going to work. Most of us have no concept of that, of somebody holding this up and talking about ventricles and all these different things. But we can understand a car. We can understand that a car, it needs gas, it needs spark, it needs oxygen. And if we understand it in that measure, he can impart why this person's heart is not working. Same thing with Jesus. He said, look over here. Here's a mustard plant growing out in this field. Now that mustard plant, it started out this tiny. He said, but look at it now. It's sitting out in the middle of the field, and there's a bird nesting in it. He said that farmer could go harvest mustard from it and have spice for his food. Look at it. He probably saw a woman that was there that he had seen her baking things. And he watched her pour just a capful of little yeast pellets into her giant vat of flour. And he said, look at that. That yeast is going to go all through that dough. As she kneads it in there, it's going to go all through that dough. And then she'll let it set, and it'll grow to 2 to 3 times as big as the ball of dough that she wound up with. And he said, let me teach the kingdom to these people like that. I want them to understand. So I'm going to use these parables to help impart those words to them. Let's read this in Luke. Luke said, then Jesus said, what is the kingdom of God like? How can I illustrate it? It is like a tiny mustard seed that a man plants it in a garden. It grows and becomes a tree, and the birds make nests in its branches. Very similar to what we just read. Keep going. And he also asked, what else is the kingdom of God like? It is like the yeast a woman used in making bread. Even though she put only a little yeast in 3 measures of flour, it permeated every part of the dough. Do you know why these are similar? Do you know why both of these are similar? It's because it stuck with the disciples. They read other things. I mean, there was other parts that they tried to put together. They tried to put together how Jesus' life and the parts that were important to them based on who they were. But they remembered this story. I mean, it's almost identical between the 2 books. They remembered this story because it stuck with them. When you read the parables, they're almost identical in all the different places. It did its job. I guarantee you they used these examples when they went out after Jesus was gone. Parables work. Little stories work when it's related to what people are doing. And Jesus understood that. The Son, or part of the Godhead that created us, understood that we need to also be, and as teachers, we learn that there's different ways people learn. Some can hear and understand something. Some have to see it. They have to have a visual. And then some have to hold it in their hands. He's appealing to different senses here. He's saying a truth so people can hear this. I guarantee you he's showing them this so the visual people are following what he's saying. And the tactile people have probably touched and kneaded dough. They've probably went out and harvested mustard from the mustard plant. So he's appealing to them. He's trying to tell a big truth. Now, just as we always say, a story is no good if you don't get the message behind the story. So what does that message look like? Let's keep going. Little seeds or particles, I didn't know what to call yeast things, spores, I don't know. Little seeds or particles can cause big changes. That's the message in this whole thing. He said this tiny little mustard seed, and you can see it if you got mustard seeds at your house. They're just tiny. I mean, if I was holding one up here, you wouldn't see it. He said, this tiny thing, this little thing can become that huge plant. He said, this tiny little bit of yeast, and bakers know that it doesn't take much yeast. This tiny little bit of yeast can leaven a whole big bowl of dough. So then we have to ask the question, what is he trying to say then? Little seeds or particles. We understand that. We understand they'd seen the mustard seeds turn into big plants. They had seen the dough become different when they added in the yeast. So what's he trying to say? Because that's where we need to go. That's what these preachers get paid the big bucks, to interpret the scriptures in how we go forward. Let's look at this next one. So we're going to start out here with the seed. So that little seed, that little tiny seed, it could get even stuck in a bird's feathers because it's so tiny and little. In fact, that's how it's transmitted. Birds brush up against it and they carry it to other places. Or the other method. I'm going to leave that, you figure that out. That little seed, that very little seed, it becomes a home for the least of these, and it becomes food for the farmer, all from this tiny little seeds. It's just tiny, and yet it can do all this. Isn't that incredible? So what's he saying with that? Let's go a little further into that. Let's analyze that. Let's see this verse first. Matthew 17:20. Jesus comes down from the mountain. There's a man sitting there who's possessed. And he said, my son, he keeps having these fits. He falls into fires. He does all this stuff. I don't know what to do because I'm worried he's going to really hurt himself. And the disciples prayed for him. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything. And Jesus walks up and commands it to come out, and suddenly the kid stands up and he's fine. Said he even had a fit right there in front of them. And Jesus stands up and he's suddenly fine. He said, you don't have enough faith, Jesus told them. I tell you the truth, if you had faith even as small as a mustard seed, he must have carried around a lot of mustard seeds so that he could do this illustration, you know? You could say to this mountain that they were standing in front of, that he just got done preaching from, you could say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it would move. Nothing would be impossible. He said, your faith. He said, yeah, it just takes a little bit of faith. It just takes a little bit of belief in my kingdom. It takes just a little bit of truth that you've heard. And that'll get in there. And it starts to grow inside of you, and you can do amazing things. You start believing that the impossible is possible. That the impossible is possible. Think about that. He's saying just a little bit. If that word just gets into you just a little bit, it can change things. It starts to change our mindset. It starts to make us into different people. If we can just get in a little bit. Let's keep going. In Acts 3, 1 through 6. So we have Jesus scolding the disciples there. Did you get that? Jesus scolded the disciples. He said, I need you to get this inside of you. I need you to get this inside of you. Then we have two of the disciples walking around. They're walking in to go worship at the temple. And guess what? Those words that Jesus said back in Matthew 17 suddenly become really prevalent. Peter and John went into the temple one afternoon to take part in the 3 o'clock prayer service. And as they approached the temple, a man lame from birth was being carried in. Each day he was beside the temple gate, the one called the Beautiful Gate, so he could beg from the people going into the temple, to get his sustenance from the people going into the temple. When he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for some money. Give me the thing I need to sustain myself. You look like two nice guys. Could you give me something to help sustain myself? But Peter and John didn't have any money. They didn't have anything. They looked at him intently, and Peter said, look at us. And the lame man looked at them eagerly, expecting some money. But Peter said, I don't have any silver or gold for you, but I'll give you what I have. He'll give you a mustard seed. He's gonna use that mustard seed faith that he's been given, that he had taken in, and this mustard seed that was put inside of him back in Matthew 17 has started to bear fruit. It started to make a place where the birds can nest, and the seeds can be harvested for his own mustard. He said, I'll give you what I have. In the name of Jesus Christ the Nazarene, get up and walk. And they helped him to his feet. And we all know the song. He didn't just get up. He started running and leaping and doing things that he couldn't do before, maybe ever. It said he was lame from birth. He never was able to do these things. There's that mustard seed. He took that mustard seed of understanding of the kingdom. That mustard seed that God was who he said he was and will do what he said he will do. He took that little bit and he put it out there to this man today. And the man got up and walked. I don't have the physical things that you need, sir, but what I do have, I'm going to give you a seed of this kingdom that I had to grow inside of me. I'm going to put a little bit of that back into you. And we're going to see what it does. Has your mustard seed started to produce? Has what was put in you as a child started to produce that you're now giving out? Or has your ground gone fallow? Have you let the enemy steal your ground? And your mustard seed no longer produces? Let's keep going. Let's look at the next one. He said, just a little yeast, a capful caused 60 pounds of flour to rise. Just a tad bit. That little bit of yeast doesn't equal 60 pounds of flour. I should have brought in 60 pounds of flour so you could all see, as I stacked the 5-pound bags up there, that you could all see it. That'd be 8 5-pound, no, even more. Wow, my math's off. I should have gone to a better school. What is it? What is it? What would it be?
6 10-pound sacks.
It would be 6 10-pound sacks. If you know what a 10-pound sack is, you can see that. There's for your visual people. 6 10-pound sacks of flour, and all it took was a capful of yeast, and it made that flour turned into dough rise. What's he saying? He's saying just a little bit of faith is going to cause big changes. That flour gets in, it starts germinating, or the yeast gets in, starts germinating in the flour, brings the dead parts of that flour back to life. Oxygen is produced, it causes bread to raise. Creates those great little holes so the bread's not so dense. It starts doing things. It causes a visual change in the situation. Just that little bit. It changes the nature of what it's put into. Be you not conformed to this world, but be you transformed by the renewing of your mind. How do you get the renewing of your mind? It's by understanding just a little bit of the kingdom. And what does that little bit of understanding turn into? It turns into more understanding and lots of understanding, and it starts to transform us into who we are supposed to be. Wow. Just a little bit. We can just get hold of a little bit. If you can get hold of it, how do you get a hold of it? You're going to have to pray through it. You're going to have to take it and say, what does this look like in my life? Like she was talking about the Lion of Judah roaring over a situation, causing things to change. That when he comes into the situation, that situation has to change. Just like it does when yeast is introduced into flour, or a dough. It has to change. This goes back to the communion. You remember we take that little bit of pie crust it's representative of bread that doesn't rise because they didn't have time to put yeast in it and let it rise back when they were getting ready to leave Egypt. But when it's allowed to rise, what's it get like this? It bakes up and it's like this. But if not, it causes big changes. It causes big changes. Just a little bit of faith can cause a big change. Do you get that? Do you trust that? That's the real question. Do we trust that? Well, you've all heard that all your life. Do you trust it enough to take in and allow that to change you? Or do you just want to look like all the people around here? Do you want to be transformed? That may be the great question. Let's keep going. Jesus soon saw a huge gathering of people coming to look at them. This is the speaking on the Mount of Olives. He says, turning to Philip, he said, where can we buy bread to feed all these people? And he's testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. And Philip replied, even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them. If we worked for months, we couldn't feed all these people, Jesus. I mean, you must be joking. You must be joking. Are you kidding? Are you looking at the same crowd that I'm looking at? Do we need glasses? No. Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. He said, hey, there's this young boy here, and he's got 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Are you looking at this? Are you looking at this? 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Do you know what they called that then? They called that lunch. They called that lunch for one. Maybe a snack later down there if you get those fish, keep them cool. Maybe you can have a little snack a little bit later on. He's got 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Well, what good is that to this huge crowd? This feels like that guy that interjects the unhelpful thing. Like is that you say, hey, I need a wrench to fix this car. And he said, I got a hammer. I've got 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, Jesus. Maybe you can go eat. You must be hungry if you're telling these people that we should go buy bread. You must be hungry. Maybe this is enough for you. And Jesus goes, He said, tell everyone to sit down, Jesus said. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes, and the men alone numbered about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, he gave thanks to God, and then he distributed them to the people. Whoa. He distributed them to the people. Not just one person. I guarantee you there wasn't enough there to do for everybody in the first row that was around Jesus to have enough. He starts distributing it out there to the people. They just keep on distributing it. He said, and then afterward, he did the same with the fish, and everyone ate as much as they wanted. He took a little bit, and it turned into a lot. He was illustrating the kingdom message even there. Are you looking at that? He was illustrating. He said, if you're in the kingdom, this is enough. This is enough. This one boy's lunch turns into food for 5,000. If you're in the kingdom. It's a scary lesson. Maybe the disciples were the only one that understood this, but they understood it. It's a scary lesson. He looked at a young boy's lunch and he said, it's enough. He illustrated that mustard seed, that little bit of yeast. He illustrated that, and he turned it into enough for everybody. The mustard seed fed the farmer. The yeast leavened the lump. Isn't that good news? If we can just get a hold of a little bit of this, if we can just understand a little bit of this, it could transform who we are. It can make us more than nurses and teachers and all these different occupations represented here. If we can just get a hold of just a little bit of an understanding of the kingdom. I get to preaching and forget I need to keep up with this. As our worship team comes up, I want us to think about this. How many of you all have been here for how long? Or been in a church for how long? And yet I'll go into every day a room and talk to people that have sat in the church for years. And they start hearing me, and suddenly they don't understand why I know this more than they do. They get confused. They start asking me, where is your church? They start, and then notice none of them are here. They started asking that question, where is this place? Where are you getting this that I'm not getting it from? I've sat in my church for 40 years. I've never heard anything like what you're talking about. I mean, I'm just here punching out time. But you seem to have gotten a hold of this and are believing everything that you've been telling me for the last 10 minutes. It's because the yeast has leavened what's inside here. It's because the mustard seed has produced fruit and provides shelter to those that don't have it. And what I'd say today is it can do the same thing in your life. Would you worship with us one last time?